I was 220 pounds. I was solid muscle. I looked super healthy and fit, right? If you saw me, you'd be like, oh, that's a healthy dude right there. Um,
Right.
it, all my blood tests were normal. All my specialists just kept saying the same thing. But
How old are you now? How old are you now at
I'm
this?
pushing 40.
No, no, not. I'm sorry, not now. What you're talking about? The
I was about age 19. Sorry.
Okay, so you were in prime studman
Yeah, yeah.
position here.
Peak,
Yeah,
peak of my health and fitness
ex-
career.
exactly.
But I had no energy. And I tried to tell people this, and they just look at me like, "What are you talking about? You're a super healthy and fit guy. You're training for 2 hours, at a time." But I couldn't lie. I felt horrible. I had no. It was a struggle for me just to get through the day without falling asleep.
Yeah,
So one day I was training for my next fight. My buddy's basement. We had our little fight training club. Don't
yep.
talk about it. Um, but
Great movie.
yeah. But my heart rate shot up to like well over 200. It wouldn't go back down. I got rushed to the
Whoa,
hospital and I almost died. And
whoa.
I was just, when I got out of there, I was just like, all right, I clearly got to try something else because I clearly don't know what health and fitness is. It's not working. I may look super awesome and, muscular, but I just feel like death and I
Yeah,
almost died due to severe exhaustion. So I had to try something different.
yeah.
So, um, my buddy, so like many people, we do everything conventional, and then we say, "Oh, let's try this alternative method." What the heck? What I got to lose? So, my buddy, I remember everybody always talking about this crazy herbologist guy who lives out in the country. So I went one day just in my car, completely brain fogged and brain dead, just exhausted, because I only had energy when I was training, which find out later I was adrenaline junkie. We can talk about that later. But
Exactly.
so I went to him and I was like, "Hey man, I'm looking for this herbologist. You ever hear of him?" He's like, "Yeah, it's me." You all right over
Okay, bam.
there? So and after telling him my story, he looked at me, he felt a couple spots in my body, uh, you know, did a couple of quick exams and he listened to me. And after like 5 minutes, he was like, "Yep, I think your organs are starting to shut down." And I was like,
Wow.
I was shocked. I was like, wait, I've age 19, 220 solid. I was only ever told that I was peak health and fitness. I was perfectly healthy and fit. What is this guy talking about? But on
Yeah,
the other hand, I was super intrigued and relieved that, hey, this is the first guy who sounds like he knows what's wrong with me. This is the
yeah.
first guy who's like presenting like a thesis or a problem. And I'm like, so, I started going to him, uh, and after every single thing he told me to do, I started to feel better. I started to have more energy. And, I guess the blood test and everything stayed the same, but
That's weird. No, it wasn't an iron thing. It's not an iron. That's the first thing I thought of was lack
no,
of iron.
so
But
and that's
wow,
exactly that's what's, we talk about this Maha movement, make America healthy again. And, like we struggle so much in this country with health and, chronic disease, but every like health and fitness guru and guy out there I don't hear anybody, like everybody's sidestepping the electricity in the body, and that's what nobody was testing for is the electricity in my body, like
yes, yes.
how strong or weak it was. So that's how everything went undetected, and I all healthy and fit to modern standards and almost died at the same time.
Wow, that's a curveball. I
Yeah.
mean, right?
But, I consider myself lucky because if I never would have found
Oh
that
yeah,
guy, or this path, I would have just kept just, listening to all the health and fitness gurus, oh, let me just take this supplement, right? Oh, that's another thing that right before that burnout, um, so right before that little near death experience, people kept telling me, everybody's always telling me, oh, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that iron? Why don't you get your iron checked? Why don't you
right.
go
That's
to
what we normally do.
yeah. Why don't you go see somebody? Maybe it's just a chemical imbalance in your head. So I said, okay, what do I got to lose? So I went, and after, a big 15-minute in-depth interview, assessment, convinced me I had depression, and my neurotransmitters weren't jumping the synapse.
Hard.
So let's give you something to help those things jump the synapse. But again, not addressing the root problem. Why weren't
No.
they addressing the synapse instead of souping them up to jump the synapse? Why weren't they? Again, my body was just overall unhealthy. My body was drained. My electricity was drained. So I started waking up in the morning, like 4 in the morning, like all hyped up, like it was some kind of stimulant. And a lot of times,
Oh, the pills, the
yeah,
supplements they were
yeah,
giving you. Oh, gotcha.
no,
Oh,
it
that
was
sucks.
it was a
Oh,
yeah. But it was meant to, also help, the
sure.
chemical imbalance in the brain, the neurotransmitters. But it was a stimulant. I mean, call it what it is. And
Mhm.
it just kept speeding up. So I was waking up at 4 in the morning doing power cleans, in my buddy's basement, like, you can do it, like the gazelle guy. And I was like, man, this is
Sorry about
great.
that. You got me.
This is great. I feel awesome,
Woo! Yeah.
Um, but in the back of my head, I don't know if you remember those commercials. That's not natural.
Yes.
He's doing the spray
Yes.
on hair, and he's like,
Yes.
I just kept hearing in the back of my head, this just isn't natural.
Yeah.
And again, I was training for my next fight, and yeah, my body just almost gave out. So that's what we do. We live this unhealthy lifestyle. Even like me, we try to live this healthy lifestyle, but
Mhm.
we are not taught. Like, this information is hidden from us. So
Mhm.
we end up just draining our energy very gradually, and it's just super unfortunate. And while it's unfortunate that this happened to me, it brought me on this path, and it made me write this book, and it led me all around the world to train with the most powerful human beings in the world. And it taught me what true health really is. And now I'm able to at least make some kind of lemonade out of these lemons that were chucked at me, at age 19,
Yeah.
and
That's
help other
insane.
people before they drain themselves for their entire life.
And your timing of your message here, you mentioned